find the peace and opportunity. Let it all fall into place.
Good as some sheets, it's been a long week. Think I'm finna kick up my feet. I'm craving isolation and a few tangerines. I crave a little me time on my free time, but time be moving slow, but ain't no stagger when I step. I'm a casual man, so I always watch before I tread. I ain't mad, I'm just trying to get my ass about this bed. It's real hard to eat pressure off of ties around your neck. It's hard.
To the heart, I never kissed a mouth that tastes like yours. Strawberries and something more. Ooh yeah, I want it all. Lipstick on my guitar. Fill up the engine, we can drive real far. Go dancing underneath the stars. Ooh yeah, I want it all. Got me feeling like I wanna be that guy. I wanna kiss your eyes, I wanna drink that smile, I wanna feel like like my soul's on fire. I wanna stay up all day and all night. Yeah, you got me singing like, ooh, I love it when you do it like that. And when you're close up, give me the shivers. Oh baby, you wanna dance till the sunlight cracks.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the State of RHD. It's so great to see so many of you joining us today from all of our states, our cities, service lines, and programs. We're so glad that you're here. So my name is Danny Torrance. I am an organizational development and training specialist on the learning and development team in shared services, and I'll be facilitating the meeting today. So we have a full and exciting menu of topics and speakers lined up for you today. So I'm going to jump right in. So today we wanted to start by reading our 3 basic assumptions to support our values-based culture and lay the foundation for this meeting. So as I read through the 3 basic assumptions, take a moment to reflect on them and make an intention to practice them during our time together. So our 3 basic assumptions are: people are of equal human worth, people are essentially good unless proven otherwise, and there's no single way to manage corporate issues well. So these three basic assumptions also support the goal of the state of RHD. And so the goal of our time together today is to address your questions about the status of the corporation as a whole and to provide clear, open, and honest communication. It serves as an open forum for all employees to engage with the executive team, to be informed about corporate-wide initiatives that impact you, and to ask questions about issues that matter to you. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll pull up the agenda and just some housekeeping items for today. Okay, go into presenter mode. There we go. So today we'll have two dedicated time slots for Q&A, and we encourage you to send in questions now or anytime throughout the meeting today. And there are a few different ways that you can do so. So first, you can submit a question using your voice, and that's our anonymous suggestion box. You can also type your question into the chat in Zoom. You can email the State of RHD mailbox at stateofrhd@rhd.org. You can email Sarah Reed at sarah.reed@rhd.org. And you can also use the raise hand feature in Zoom. So we'll have Sarah monitoring your voice and the email inboxes, and we have David that'll be monitoring the chat. So we'll try our best to get through all the questions that you have today, but if we're not able to, we'll be sure to capture the remaining questions and get back to you after the meeting. So I also wanted to share just a quick reminder to keep yourselves on mute unless you're speaking or asking a question, and this will help us manage background noise throughout the meeting. So here is our agenda for today. So we started things off with some commercial ads at the beginning as you were joining. And if you're just joining us now, be sure to listen to the recording to catch those updates. After the housekeeping, Marco is going to give us some opening remarks. And then we'll move into a series of short presentations. So Bernie is going to talk about communities of practice. Deanna is going to give us a financial budget update. And Tarina is going to share a little bit of information on the Together We Care grant. So following our short presentations, we'll have 10 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll move into the deeper dive section of our meeting. So we have Linda and Tara then will give us an update on our EHR, that's the electronic health record. Alicia will give us a compensation roadmap update. Stacy will share some results of our Together We're Better survey, and then we'll hear program updates. So Linda will share from BHH, Bernie from IDD, and Emily from FPCN. Following the deep dive, we'll have 20 minutes of Q&A, and Marco will close the meeting, and we will conclude with a closing video. So be sure to stick around for all of these great agenda items. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marco for the opening remarks.
Thanks, Danny. I wish I had some air horns. Mary, the DJ, the DJ on the records there. I appreciate it. Awesome music, awesome music. Welcome everybody, and I hope everyone can hear me. And I'm hopeful that I will not have technology issues as I'm sharing some opening thoughts with you. So good afternoon, everyone. As most of you know, and actually before I get started, I have to make notice of the number of participants that are with us today, and that number continues to be climbing up as the call goes on. I appreciate everyone creating the space to join us today. I again appreciate you joining. And I'm looking forward to our time together, as I know much of the executive team is as well. But as we do, let me share some opening thoughts before we get into some of the agenda items. So as many of you know, we're a 52-year-old organization created back in 1970 by our founders, Bert Wolfson and Bob Fishman. And Bert and Bob set out to fulfill a dream to create the ideal workplace environment. A workplace environment where staff support people of all abilities to maximize their potential for living productive, fulfilling lives, and also where staff have the right to work in settings that are equally productive and fulfilling for them, which nurture and promote qualities such as openness, trust, creativity, and empowerment. This vision or path was further defined by our mission: to provide caring, effective, and innovative services that empower people of all abilities as they work to achieve the highest level of independence possible and build better lives for themselves, their families, and their communities. Fulfilling our mission would not be possible without our DSPs. And as many of you know, this week is DSP Recognition Week. So I do want to take a moment today, take this moment to recognize all of our direct service professionals who are truly the heart and soul of the supports we provide for the individuals in our care. There are thousands of DSPs that go the extra mile every day without hesitation, with unwavering commitment, providing essential, effective services on the front lines to those who need them the most. So I thank each and every one of you for all that you do every day. Supporting our DSPs and our mission are all of our direct service and programmatic staff who provide support and services to the individuals in our care, and also our administrative staff who support us nationwide with guidance, with tools, with resources. We are an organization of people supporting people, human beings supporting other human beings. So the vision and path that I mentioned a few moments ago towards creating the ideal workplace environment began to take further shape through the interaction and support of human beings who were grounded in a dream. Our culture was developed. From this interaction, our basic assumptions, our values were defined that took root and became expectations, inspirations, infusing and defining our culture even to the present day. So why am I taking us down this path? At RHD, we are not just about fulfilling our mission. We are intentionally focused on how we do it, our approach to the work we do, and the environment we create, which brings to the forefront our culture, which is grounded by our basic assumptions and values. However, how we live these assumptions and values and our experiences with each other, that is what will allow us to maintain, enhance, and when we just determine necessary, change our culture. Culture was an intentional component of our founders' dream for our organization, and it remains so today. And company culture is not a box you can check, but requires intentional effort and reflection every day by everyone to maintain, build, and support. This is the work we need to continue to do together. And at times we do this work well, and I recognize that there are times we don't do it as well. But this is part of our culture. It won't always be as desired. But what is key is that we remain open to question and challenge, to dreams and possibilities. There's one last item that I want to share that speaks to the state of RHD. 7 years ago this month, we introduced to the organization our first ever strategic plan. And since that time, we've embarked on many business initiatives, operating and strategic, achieving goals and modifying our plans along the way. Every initiative identified, whether completed or still in process, was developed to support and fulfill our mission. At the time of developing our strategic plan, the organization lived a good 45 years, not without struggle. The world has changed significantly and has become more complex over the past 15 to 20 years. A level of complexity, I would suggest, not known by our founders, but definitely recognized the complex challenge in achieving the dream of an ideal workplace. So what does this all mean? I know many of you are saying, Marco, get to the point, you're over your time. So what does this all mean? We started as a dream with a mission, and along the way created and defined our culture. Our mission remains the same. While the experiment worked and and provide a great cultural foundation built upon respect for the dignity and worth of every individual. We also need to continue to dream. We also must be intentional about holding each other accountable to our basic assumptions and values through questioning with curiosity and with a spirit of learning. And leaving the door open to change that supports our mission and allows us to continue to be the great organization that we are, impacting the lives of so many every day. So I ask you all to join me in continuing to dream. Let's make the impossible possible for many individuals. Let's be the pioneers of uncharted RHD waters, learning and challenging ourselves to be better every day. So thank you all for joining us. We're up to 375, so appreciative of everybody creating the space. And I thank you all for moving RHD forward together. Thanks, Danny.
Thank you so much, Marco, and thank you for your opening remarks. So we're going to jump in and start with our short presentations. So Bernie, you are up first.
Thank you, Danny. And I do know that you pointed out short, so we will try to keep it short. Communities of practice, I want to thank folks for putting the slide up earlier as it was going through the commercials. Hope everybody got a chance to see it. And I'm going to turn to David Atride, who's going to do the bulk of the presentation on our communities of practice. David is a member of the DSIC team. He helps to supervise and support many of our clinicians throughout the organization, and he is a driving force for our communities of practice throughout the corporations. David, you're up.
Thank you, Bernie. Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity to speak about communities of practice. And Bernie's learned the fine art of delegation as a leader, but I hope that he'll chime in if I'm not making sense or if I miss something. So communities of practice. So it's a concept that's been around in the organizational and business literature and business thinking since around the 90s. And it's, I think, really occurred to me as I was listening to Marco's remarks, opening remarks. It's really, by a happy coincidence, I think, really aligns with, certainly with our values, with our strategic plan, and with Marco's remarks, around building this culture and community and the mission of the company. So communities of practice are around, based around the idea of mutual engagement, shared learning, and social participation. They are not just another team meeting. They're not going to be led, they are not led by a traditional leader. With all due respect to our wonderful leaders, be they unit directors, divisional leaders, regional leaders. The idea of a community of practice is it's a group of peers coming together, self-led, and really trying to capture that what is known as tacit knowledge, right? Not knowledge that you easily get from books or from your traditional education, from your trainings, or even perhaps from your supervisor, as those sources of knowledge don't have the knowledge that those on the ground doing a particular specialty or doing unique type of work have picked up that wisdom, that experience, that savvy. And the idea is that we can really come together in a self-led fashion and share that tacit knowledge, share the tricks of the trade, the strategies that, for example, DSPs are appropriate to use them as an example in DSP week. The knowledge, the savvy, the strategies, the tricks that DSPs learn, both generally in that particular job, and then also with a specific type of consumer. I'm always think about communities of practice when I'm in homes, be they remotely or in person in homes, and seeing the incredible work that DSPs do, the knowledge they have, the instincts they have that I just don't have anymore, having not been a DSP for longer than I care to admit. And also when I'm in meetings, clinical meetings, trying to strategize with a multidisciplinary team around the appropriate strategies, effective strategies with a particular case or a particular situation. I'm always humbled by the knowledge of people from different disciplines. And again, that savvy that they have with the lens, with their experience and the unique type of work they do. So there's a real value that we believe that can be gained from developing communities of practice and also nurturing and supporting the ones that we already have. There's a lot of groups that already meet that may not call themselves communities of practice yet, but they really are in the spirit of a communities of practice, in the sense that they're peer-led, self-driven, and they come together, which I love the idea of coming together, particularly across the whole geographic region of RHD, folks that couldn't get together physically in a physical sense in a meeting room, but can get together remotely and again share that learning, share that knowledge. So what's the value of this? We think and believe it can build morale, build relationships among peers, share that knowledge, that tacit knowledge, link peers across the country as they share the wisdom and resources through mentoring and peer support. And obviously, bottom line, improve the product, right? Improve the service we provide, improve hopefully the morale of our wonderful employees from DSPs to everyone across the corporation. Examples of communities of practice, as I kind of mentioned, certainly would be wonderful to think DSPs could get together, be they from the same program or the same region, the same service line, you name it. A group of DSPs come together, self-led, just vent, strategize, share support. Same with clinicians or behavior specialists across the same service line or the same region. ACT team members, and this is a pilot we're looking at developing. I believe ACT team members. There's a standardized approach that is used across the corporation, and we really think it could be very valuable for ACT team members to get together in a community of practice from across different parts of the country and share their experiences and support each other. And nurses, our wonderful nurses across the corporation too, perhaps across divisions or corporations or regions, perhaps get together, have a shared learning in a community of practice. So we're running, as I mentioned, we're running a couple of pilots soon. We're getting that together. We're going to look for folks that are interested in certain categories and get a community of practice up and running, find ways to support that communities of practice, offering resources. And again, we're leading this drive, but we're actually going to, it is self-led. So we're not going to impose this. We're going to find people that are interested and engaged and give them support and then get out of the way, because it is, as I say, it's peer-led. It's not a top-down concept at all. And we're also, as I say, going to find ways to support groups and educate groups that are already de facto communities of practice and let them know a little bit more about the concept and try to enhance what they're already doing. So if anyone's interested or wants some more information, you can reach out to myself, any DSIC members, Bernie, Sandy, Linda, if you want more information or more insights of any kind. Bernie, did I miss anything?
Not a thing, David.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thank you, Bernie and David, for your communal presentation on communities of practice. That was perfect. So now we're going to hand it over to Deanna to give us an update on our financial budget for the fiscal year 2023.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are all doing well. Before I start talking about the financial budget, first wanted to say thank you very much to our DSPs. I appreciate the support you provide to those that we serve. If those of you who work with the programs can please bring that appreciation to our DSPs, because I realize even though we have 387 participants now, we are still missing quite a bit of them. That would be greatly appreciated. Budgeting numbers, we love them. So I have a quick agenda. I'm going to try to stick to our 5 minutes. I'm going to talk some budgeting 101, get everybody grounded on what a budget really means. Our budgeting overview, look at our historical growth. How's the capital budget different than an operating budget? Talk about the capital budget, and then just provide you some contact information for future questions. So our operating budgeting 101. What is a budget? You can see it's our financial projection for the next fiscal year. We run on a fiscal year from July 1st to June 30th. So not a calendar year, a fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th. For those of you who are new to the organization, we are made up of 3 different divisions: behavioral health and housing, our IDD group, and healthcare, which is our FQHC, which is FPCN. At RHD, we have 2 types of budgets. We have an operational budget, routine programmatic expenses and revenue, probably what comes to mind for those of you who are familiar with budgets. The capital budget is a budget that gets created to purchase things like roofs, vehicles. When we're buying the vehicle instead of leasing a vehicle, we prefer you lease and or make sure that that makes sense for your program. Purchasing homes, some software purchases fall into this. So that's a capital budget. In some instances, our programs, thank you, Sarah, FQHC is a federally qualified health center. In some instances, our programs receive revenue for those improvements. So we actually have revenue to spend on those instead of having to create those funds ourselves. The budget again covers 1 year. Next slide, please, Mary. Who builds the budget? All of us do. Some of us spend more time with it than others, but the programs have to work with the financial managers to help provide a clear understanding of how many individuals we intend to serve in the next year. What are some of the hurdles that are in the way? What do those numbers then look like when incorporated into our financials? So everyone's a part of it. Who's responsible for it? All of us are. We are successful when our programs are serving as many individuals as they can, delivering quality care. That is first and foremost. It always will be. And when we think about how we spend our money, we need to make sure that how we're spending our money supports that. So if you were spending this out of your paycheck, would I spend it on this? And does it support quality care? What are questions you could ask yourself? Next slide, please. So where are we this year? We have a balanced budget that was approved at the end of June by our board. There's a surplus of $350,000. We would not approve a budget with a deficit. So surplus of $350,000. Our goal, for those of you who have been in this presentation in prior years, would be to end with actuals of $1 million surplus. That allows the banks to be very comfortable in viewing us as a healthy, financially healthy organization. What is in the budget? The exciting things that you want to know of: compensation. Yay! Alicia's going to talk about compensation in a little bit. But once again, this year we have $1.5 million in the budget for a compensation increase. That's consistent with what we have done the past few years. And then again, Alicia's going to talk about it in a little bit. Health insurance is in the budget. We switched providers from IBC, Blue Cross, to Cigna, and experienced savings associated with that. We shared some of those savings with our employees. The remainder we want to use to benefit the employees. We have our annual reserves in there, which is the rainy day fund, $1.3 million. We put that in every year. I don't know what it's going to be used for, but it's in there just in case something happens and we need it. Maybe it's a program experienced the deficit we weren't anticipating. You can dream up the explanation. They change every year. So we put that in there just to make sure we have the coverage. If we didn't need it, it would just fall to the bottom line. This year's budget, that would say 1.6. And then I would be saying, well, 1 million is my goal. So how do I spend 600,000 on our employees and on our individuals that we serve? In this year's budget as well, we have business development initiatives led by Karen's team. It involves largely the BHH division. Some of it is within the IDD division as well. It's an expansion of services and or new programs that we would be providing. Next slide, please. This is the historical growth chart. You can just see that we're growing each year. I do want to be clear when you look at this in the future on your own time, if you want to, that chart on the right includes our capital revenue that I was referring to. So at the bottom, we put a little bullet and we pulled out the $6.5 million is how much is in the 321 that is for equipment. So from an operating perspective, we are about a $315 million organization when you think about revenue. Next slide. This slide is simply the contacts in the departments who can support you with any questions around the budget or forecasts that you might have. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Deanna, for that enlightening presentation on our budget. I learned a lot more about the numbers. It's great. So now I'm going to hand it over to Tarina to give us an update on the Together We Care grant.
Thanks, Danny. Hi, everyone. I'm Tarina, Director of Development at RHD. Just wanted to come on and give you a little bit of information about a new initiative that we're going to be sending out in a couple weeks. So the Together We Care grant. RHD's fund development plans on diverting internal resources and support to programs organization-wide through the proposed Together We Care grant. We will activate those lovely values of ours of innovation, creativity, and empowerment to inject unrestricted funds. And those are the funds that us fundraisers love, unrestricted funds, and you programs love it too. To diverse RHD programs, we want to build goodwill between RHD corporate and our programs and provide tangible support to programs in need of capital. So that's the overall vision. So the what? Together We Care is a new internal grant fund accessible to all RHD programs. We're going to do it 2 times this year for fiscal year 23. So grant awards will be in various forms. So it could be something small. Sometimes I get requests, we want to go on a trip, we need movie tickets, karaoke night, something fun to do. Or it could be something more significant. I'm thinking about my friends in Nebraska and their chairlift needs. So it could be something larger as well. So through this fund, RHD will award $100,000 of unrestricted funds annually to diverse programs across the country. So the why are we doing this? So as fundraisers, I understand it, I'm sure you understand it in your programs, that nonprofit programs are continually tasked to do more with less. In the current climate, we've all realized from COVID that we faced increased demand, staffing challenges, pandemic burnout, and just the effects of just global trauma. So with that said, tight resources often lead to cautious spending. Scarcity mindset that stifles creativity can often develop. I see it every day. Programs can become siloed from internal resources, such as fundraising, and are very cautious in the resources that they do have. So we want to help you in that way. Fund development exists to support direct services and the people that we serve. We want to demonstrate our deep respect and our support for programs like yours by giving you an opportunity to access these guaranteed unrestricted funds. So I'm just going to go over just some quick objectives. So number one, and we want to promote equity and fund access for less seasoned programs. We have many programs who often get fundraising dollars, and we want to share that wealth across the corporation because we have some programs who don't. So we want to build equity there. We also want to build fundraising skills among our directors and share the real benefits of fundraising. We want to inspire you and instill that goodwill. We want to demonstrate in real time the ways in which fund development can support you. We want to supplement new initiatives and programmatic expenses. And we want to support areas of innovation, creativity, and empowerment. So the who, unit directors will be invited to submit proposals that will be reviewed and awarded by a committee comprised of RHD fundraising team and probably 2 or 3 other RHD staff members. All programs are eligible. I'm going to say that again, all programs are eligible. Fundraising will provide a scoring rubric and technical assistance to any programs that are unfamiliar with the grant process. You don't have to be a seasoned grant professional. You don't have to have done this before. We're here to help you. We want to build tools in your toolbox. The when. So grants will be made available 2 times a year. The first one will be in December and in March. Each grant application will be reviewed and approved or declined within 30 days of submission. So this go around for fiscal year 23, we're saying in December and in March, and you will know within 30 days whether you were approved or declined. And it will be according to that rubric, which those technical questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Where will they be listed? Grant application forms will be hosted on My RHD. There will be a Google form and related information. The contact person directly will be myself. We're also going to be setting up a separate email address. And within the next few weeks, we're leaning towards probably the end of September. You will see some communications coming out from our communications team regarding this information. But any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to me or any staff member of the fund development team. I see the chat is like blowing up. So happy to answer any questions. Sarah's also going to be managing the chat. But again, happy to have offline conversations regarding Together We Care grant. We're very excited about it. It's something that personally I have been really trying to promote and move forward since I've been here the last 3.5 years, because I think it's something that our programs definitely need. Being in this world, in the fund development world, I totally understand the challenges, and I've had discussions with many, many unit directors here at RHD on what the existing challenges are. And, we're here to help and we want to help you move this forward.
Well, thank you so much, Tarina. And what an
You're
awesome
welcome.
opportunity for our programs to apply for these funds. So very exciting. We're moving into our first Q&A portion of our meeting today. So we'll spend 10 minutes doing Q&A. Before we dive in, I'll share my slide one more time. I want to remind folks how they can submit their questions. So give me just one moment. Okay, so just as a reminder, there are 4 different ways you can submit your questions. You can submit them using your voice or anonymous suggestion box. You can email the State of RHD inbox, stateofrhd@rhd.org. You can type your question into the Zoom chat, or you can use your raise hand feature on Zoom. Okay, so it sounds like there have been some questions coming into the chat. David, why don't we start with you? Are there any questions that you see?
Hold on 1 second, Dan.
Sure.
We had a question from Brandon. Is FPCN included? And I believe that was answered by Karen. Brandon, yes, FPCN is part of RHD and it's included to receive a grant. I think that's the one question. Yes, that's the one question we have so far. We had a question earlier, I'm sorry, was it 100K in total or 100K per fiscal year? And it was answered 100,000 total by Pat McCluskey. And that's all we have so far, Annie.
Okay. Great, thank you. So if everybody, feel free to type any questions you have in the chat, raise your hand, submit your questions using your voice. So we can go over to Sarah now to see, have any questions come in to you?
I did get a few questions. 2 are regarding cost of living increases for staff. So I know that Alicia is doing a presentation soon about compensation. So Alicia, do you want to wait to answer those until the next round? Okay, great. And then I also got another one about benefits that I'm hoping you can answer, Alicia. And it is, I'm wondering if anything will be done for the people who used a large amount of their out-of-pocket insurance deductible in the 6 months of the last plan, only to have a new plan start with a new larger deductible in place. I hope that was clear. Thank you. Alicia, do you want to take that now?
No, I'm going to address that in the slide. I'll address that when I get to the compensation part. Yeah,
Great.
keep it all together.
Okay, perfect. That's actually, those are the only questions I have. I did just see one pop up in the chat that I'm happy to ask. Can you give examples for what the Together We Care grant can be used for?
Sure.
Great question.
It can range from anything. We decided intentionally not to put any restrictions on the use regarding like the amount. So it's not you can only apply for a certain amount. It's really what your needs are. I'll just give you some ideas. And these are just things that have kind of come across my desk that maybe fit outside like the confines of, what you would be able to get a grant for. So a lot of times when you write a grant, you can get it for unrestricted support. So it could be, we want to take our community members out on an outing. It could be, an end of the year trip. It could be to the movies. It could be, we want to plant a garden. It could be something more physical. We want to paint. We want to buy new furniture. It could be really whatever your needs are. And I look to you to do that needs assessment. And you would need to provide, like I said, a budget, but all of that would be explained in the communication materials and the information on my RHD. But we're purposely making this very, very simple and straightforward. We don't want to make it overly complicated because we understand everybody is not in the grant world and are used to writing grants. So we wanted to do something that was pretty simple and an internal process to assist.
Marina, can you just state one more time, just to provide clarity, the dollar amount that we're allocating to this initiative and how that will work?
Yep, so sure. This year for fiscal year 23, we've allocated $100,000. Our plan is to every year meet or exceed that. This is the first year we're interested in seeing what kind of submissions are going to come in, what kind of proposals are going to come in. And I think that'll also give us a better gauge on the amount that for us in terms of fundraisers that we should be allocating for unrestricted support. And I think it's also important to denote that a lot of our gifts that come in terms of donation, they're restricted. They're restricted to our programs in terms of their usage. So we want to ensure that the unrestricted support also benefits programs across the corporation, because more often than not, unrestricted dollars are scarce.
So it's a total amount of $100,000 that we will utilize across the organization.
Right.
Right, that will be broken up and given to different programs depending on what the submissions are. Okay, I think that's good. We also got a quick question that I just came in. So where does this money come from that we're able to do this? Was it raised? Is it from RHD's budget?
It's money that was raised through our fundraising, various fundraising initiatives. So that could be special events. That could be our annual Mainline Wine Gala 2 years ago, right when COVID happened, when we turned 50. We decided to pivot to our events being unrestricted. So in doing so, we have been able to keep aside some funds for unrestricted support and enable us to do this. Prior to that, all of our events were restricted, and going forward, it just didn't make sense to continue to do it in that way. When you look at really across the corporation, there are some programs who do not get fundraising support and may not have a donor base. So this is our way to provide, again, more equity across the corporation. So programs who might not get as much fundraising, they also see some dollars that benefit their programs as well.
We have a question in the chat that says, does the procurement process apply to the grant dollars? If we want a house painted, does that require 3 bids?
I'm sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear the first part, David. I heard procurement, but I didn't hear the other part.
Karina, I'll jump in on this one.
Okay, I'm sorry, Deanna, go ahead.
It's about our procurement process, which is about spending. When you're going to spend over a certain dollar amount, you have to get a certain number of bids. So Tarina is very focused on raising the money, not spending the money. So she may not, well, actually, she probably does know some of this exists, but regardless, yes. All the rules we have to follow about how we spend money still apply, even if it's funded by the work of Tarina and her team. So yes, you would still need to get 3 bids. That's good business practice from our perspective. When you're spending that dollar amount, you want to make sure you're choosing the right vendor at a reasonable cost, etc. So the answer to that is yes.
Thank you, Deanna. So we have time for one more question if there are any out there. And then
I actually have I have 2. Someone asked why it's a grant process as opposed to a request. Like, what's the, I guess, the need for it to be like an official grant process?
Just in our world, that's how we typically operate in terms of, and I think it's important too to get our programs maybe acclimated with that kind of process, because even with our funding opportunities and our proposals for our department, just so everyone's clear too, fund development, we handle all of the foundation proposals. So if your programs are interested in doing a proposal, that is the process in which we operate in. We don't do requests in that way. And I think that, you know, just for continuity's sake, that's the way we should continue.
Can I just ask one more quick question for clarity's sake, because I think it will be very helpful?
Yeah.
Tarina, could you speak to the difference between restricted and unrestricted funds?
Sure. So a restricted fund would be money that comes in, let's say, to outside the lines. And a donor says, I'm giving this money to outside the lines for a specific purpose. It could be that unit director has, you know, maybe made a solicitation and said, hey, you know, we need to do X, right? And we want to do X and we need these funds. So that donor is going to restrict that gift to the program for that specific use. So an unrestricted gift may be something that, and in most grants, they're not unrestricted, they're always restricted, right? So the unrestricted funds come in and they can just say, I want to help the corporation. I want to give to RHD, right? And it might not be for a specific program. So it's not going to be a solicitation to all of RHD, right? It's just going to be, I just want to give and I want to help. So this is the unrestricted money that comes in that doesn't necessarily have a hard purpose, right? But we can use it for what our internal needs are. So that was just, I hope that provides a bit of clarity, just a clear delineation between the two.
Yeah, thank you. And I know Deanna just put something in the chat too to add a little bit more. So thank you both.
Yep.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our deep dive portion of our meeting today, and there will be another opportunity for Q&A after we go through another set of presentations. So if you have questions, continue to submit them, continue to think about them, and we'll have 20 minutes of Q&A again in a little bit. So now I'm going to hand it over to Linda and Tara to give us an update about the EHR.
Thanks, Danny. I'm Linda Donovan. I'm the Chief Program Officer for Behavioral Health and Housing. And Tara and I today are going to share some information around the EHR. I think Mary has slides for us. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so our vision for the EHR, many of you out there are already on Avatar or another EHR, and many of you have been participating in getting ready to be on our EHR. Our vision, really starting years ago, was to implement and sustain our use of an EHR system to meet all of our requirements and our administrative needs while helping us ensure quality outcomes for the RHD community. It's been a long process. We do a lot of different things. COVID was an interruption, but we have held tight to that vision, and we're really ready to take it to through this next phase to its completion. As all of you know, because you're out there doing the work every day, our mission. So our work around the EHR is to support our mission, serving everybody in all of our programs with effective, innovative, and person-centered programs. The EHR is going to be an extremely important tool to help us do that. Okay. So here's the new part. So while we have been working toward this for a long time, for many years, we're going to really look at, we've really analyzed it, looked at it very differently, and want to do several different things. The first one is that we are prioritizing making the EHR our #1 priority in the effort toward fulfilling our mission. So that's not our mission, it's our priority and a goal toward helping us achieve our mission. We're also hiring a consultant and putting additional resources toward the EHR project to help us get there. We have, over the last few years, so many people have pitched in and tried to work on the rollout, prioritized it across many different programs and times. And we come to the realization that to get where we need to be, we're going to be adding additional resources to help us get there. Next, Mira. Okay, so just a quick review of the benefits. And again, many of you are on the EHR and realize the benefits. We've talked a lot about it. It's increasing efficiency. It is the present and future of healthcare. We cannot be a social service agency without an EHR system and a robust EHR system. It will help us support new program development and continue to deliver and document the quality services that we provide. It helps with the billing, accurate and timely billing, which is so important to be able to be fully funded to do the work that we need to do. It helps us with the data and outcomes that we're seeking, being able, again, to really say, what did we do? How did we do it? Did we achieve what we wanted to achieve? Using all of that outcome data to help us, as well as high-tech compliance. That right now we need to change our practice to become compliant with the high-tech compliance rules. For the individuals that we serve, which is really at the heart and what drives everything we do, helping us to improve the quality of care and the efficiency of care. For the staff, the whole goal is to streamline your work and avoid repetitive tasks, using the data to understand what your work has accomplished, have information at your fingertips, and increase and improve our productivity around being able to do more of what we are trying to do. Next. And again, some of this we have covered, but for programs, really looking at how are we tracking and using this information to do our best work. It will help us coordinate with outside providers and entities, share information among staff at programs. Sometimes we have participants that are at several different programs, and that will help us tie our work together. It'll help improve our collaboration across the corporation, and have also many of you are in the situation where people that you're serving are on medication, and it will help us with safe and reliable prescribing for medication and tracking. Okay, I think that Tara is up next.
Good afternoon, everybody.
There she is.
I assume you're wondering what's next. So we'll talk a little bit about that next. For those of you who don't know me, I am Tara Drennan. I'm RHD's Chief Information and Security Officer, and I am also one of the sponsors of our electronic health record project. So in the immediate future, we are working with an outside consultant to engage in a process called organizational process analysis. What that means is they're going to come in and they're going to talk to us about our clinical and financial processes, along with our back-end operational processes, our information technology, our human resources, our quality assurance, our communication and change management process, to help us better align our strategic and business goals around the electronic health record, and to help us better define our path forward into the future. Mary, can you move ahead? So what we will be focusing on during the OPA process is leveraging our EHR and other technology to better support our organization and help us deliver services and quality service better and more efficiency. We'll be looking at support documentation requirements for all of our clinical practices and our medical records. We will look at each group of programs separately and then together across the organization. We'll be looking to support our overall operational needs. We'll be looking at compliance. We'll be ensuring that we have access to meaningful data and we can demonstrate our service value. And finally, our deliverable out of this is our roadmap to move the EHR forward across our organization, including the resources we'll need organizationally for this to be successful to support the roadmap, as well as the timeline to execute on the roadmap. So from a high level planning standpoint, the OPA process is going to take 5 weeks. It will begin the week of September 26th. And that will be with the consultant on site. After 5 weeks, they will deliver back to us our plan. From there, we will be diligently working to implement our EHR on the Avatar NX platform. So that will be a new user interface for Avatar, and that will take 12 to 18 months, during which time you'll have workshops and training, implementation planning, communication planning. And then for the future, we'll be working on continuously optimizing our electronic health record to remain current with everything rolling out towards the future. Thank you. That is what we were going to share on our EHR today. I know you all have an opportunity to ask questions in a few minutes, and I encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara and Linda, for giving us that update on the use and changes and benefits of our EHR. So we are now moving to a presentation by Alicia, who's going to give us an update on our compensation roadmap.
Thank you, Danny. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be with you guys all again. It's been some time, and I know everyone has been, working in every capacity, taking care of our consumers and taking care of our staff, and everyone's working at full throttle trying to address all of the many needs for RHD across the country. And so first, I want to thank everyone for all you do every day, because I know that it is not easy as RHD has grown into this national entity. that we have had to upsize and upscale, and the world around us sees us a certain way, and that means so much and so much change in so many areas for all of us. So I appreciate your commitment and your diligence and your patience with the growing pains for RHD. I am excited. I am always excited when I get to share where we are going and what our plans are and our goal, our vision is in terms of compensation for our staff. Those of you that know me know that I'm a social worker, tried and truly. Put my timer on. I know that was the reminder. Put the time, and I'm a social worker, tried and true. And even though I'm not able to be in the field anymore, my core philosophy is we try to take care of people that take care of the people, and we'll be doing exactly what it is that we're supposed to be doing with organizational integrity. So if you've never had a conversation with me, know that that is a driving point for me every day that I wake up. It is a thing that helps me to be able to stay motivated in this work. So today the focus is on compensation and what the plan is for compensation, and want to share some updated roadmap. I got so much feedback about this roadmap graphic that, and so many requests to keep using it and update it. And so it looks a little different because I had to take some things off in order to add some additional things. But this is to give you more of a 10,000, 15,000 foot view of where RHD is headed to compensation over the next several years. I think it is very important for everyone, even the people that are not able to be on this meeting today. If you are a supervisor, a leader, a team member, a team lead, a director, please share this information with your colleagues, your staff, your peers, and everyone at RHD, because email doesn't reach everyone. We know that. So it is important for everyone to understand that while you may not see and we may not talk about it every day, we are paying attention and working on compensation as well as all of our total rewards, as you'll see that there. We'll talk about that in a minute. It is also great to see our growth, the growth in RHD size, the growth in improving our processes and understanding and being mindful of our place in the world around us, as well as how we measure up internally. We're very good at kind of measuring up and saying, okay, how are we doing? But it is also very important to pay attention to how do we stack up against other organizations like ours, our competitors, and how they're doing and what they're doing. And so some of us, that is a primary part of our role. My role as well is attending to how RHD is stacking up internally and externally. I don't know if that's me giving you feedback. I apologize if that is. So to that point, I just wanted to take a moment. It's so easy to get bogged down in all of where we need to go, and my teams know that. I'm constantly looking at where are we going to be 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. But every once in a while, it's good to take a look back. So I didn't want to completely lose the remember to everything that we've done. And so I want to make sure that I walk us really quickly through the roadmap so we can talk about the next 4 to 5 years in RHD regarding compensation. So if you guys remember, you saw this roadmap, we talked about this before, but just kind of wanted to give us a little bit of a reflection point and opportunity. We started down this road of making sure that we were clear about what was our goal and where do we need to be, want to be in terms of compensation. Those of you who have been around, remember a day where any employee was able to say, we don't get annual adjustments of any sort. I've been here 10 years and I've never gotten an adjustment. And even though we were doing one-time salary bonuses, that statement was true. Starting salaries or wages were still reflecting where people started in the beginning. I am happy, ecstatic to say that we have begun to shift that culture, so much so that I don't hear people say to me, you know, I haven't had a raise in 5 years. I hear more people saying, what is it going to be this year? Which is, I don't know if, okay. Is that me?
No, someone had accidentally unmuted
Oh,
themselves.
okay, I
Unmuted them. You're
apologize.
good. No, not your fault at all.
I thought it was feedback. So that for the most part, most of our employees have had some type of adjustments as we are trying to almost play catch up in getting RHD caught up to the market, as we had not always been making those adjustments corporate wide for 45 years or so. So we started by assessing that and determining where we wanted to be. In 2020, again, we established the first time ever a corporate-wide minimum wage, saying we didn't want anyone to make below a certain point. We started that at $12 an hour in 2020. In 2022, 2 years later, we moved that to 15, thanks to the hard work of so many people, Deanna and the finance team, the program leadership, who were able to say, hey, and come behind the support and say, yes, we do need to move our minimum wage. We kind of all are on that same page now. In 2021, we established a floor for compensation of trying to get us to that average place in the market so that we were not behind everyone else, but we wanted to at least the initial goal to get to the middle place in the market. Last year, we moved that to 90%. This year, we're going to take additional steps in compensation. So I think that we've been slowly but surely ticking away. Now, the reality is that the world, again, outside of RHD, has changed so quickly that we are now facing, like every other organization, not just like RHD, but every other company across the country. If you're paying attention, this is not rock, I'm not sharing something with you that you don't already know, that organizations and companies and businesses across the country are struggling to try to figure out how to keep up with the current economy, the current employer and job seeker market, the search and strive to attract talent. All of us are struggling the same way. And some of us stay connected. We communicate with each other about it. We share ideas. Even though we're technically competitors, we share ideas or share insights as to what we're doing, so that we're not just looking at what is RHD doing within RHD, we're also paying attention to what are others in our industry doing or in our marketplace doing. So a few things I do want to share with you so that you are aware. We are committed, and I say this because when we started out down this path of having annual compensation as a focus and a priority for us, there were many staff as we did the road trip in 2019 that said, I hear you, Alicia, and I get it, and I appreciate the fact that you're keeping it honest with us, but I'm not sure I believe it, and I won't believe it until I see it. We definitely have been able to demonstrate a commitment to having annual adjustments every year. And as Deanna and I have sat and planned, we plan to do that in 23, as she has shared, as well as continue to move it forward 24, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we will take steps, of course, within whatever the market allows and whatever resources we have available. And as we continue to all work towards increasing opportunities in terms of resources and how we manage our corporate funds, so on and so forth, we'll be able to determine what exactly those will be. But we demonstrated a commitment and will continue to keep that commitment going forward. Also wanted to share that the goal will be that we will move in the direction of more of a total rewards. And there's a lot of other factors that allow us to be able to do that, including some of the things that Deanna mentioned around benefits. Questions around retirement have always come up. We've taken little small steps in each of those. Last year, we did a first corporate-wide retirement contribution. We hope to be able to do that again as we go forward in the future, so that we are beginning to move RHD forward in many of the areas that staff have given feedback in. So the question around COLA, I want to make sure that I address that. We recognize the current environment that as we began to take steps in compensation and we began to identify how we wanted to take those steps, the world outside of us changed. COVID happened, right? So we took our first steps 2019, 2020, and then COVID hit. And then after a while in COVID, we started to see the economy shift. And so we now have to really pay attention to how do we try to keep our get our compensation to be current with market, and that market is shifting. So when we began to talk about 50th percentile and the fact that that is the middle of the market based on data reported by employers and surveys that we look at, we hired an external entity to do that for us. We recognize that that 50th percentile doesn't stay static. So we have actually made a selection, and we will be implementing our own internal compensation tool that will allow us to stay on top of our benchmarking so that we can know more currently and a little more easily when the market shifts in a data-oriented way, not just anecdotal, but in concrete data. So just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of that. We hope to be able to have that fully implemented before the end of the year. That system requires a configuration, so on and so forth, but we have signed the contract and have a team that is going to be working on that system as well as our new HRIS when that comes. We are going to talk about that today. So in terms of COLA, Deanna and I are constantly paying attention to what's happening in the economy, as well as what resources we have, additional funds we receive. That's my timer. The additional funds we receive and how we can do things like what we've done already regarding retention dollars and other incentives, as well as other things like dollars for tenure and things going forward as those funds become available. So yes, we are looking at those. We will hope to be able to make some adjustments. I won't be able to say today that that will be something that we can include. I see a question around compensable factors. I don't know that I'm at the question and answer, but I just want to make sure that those are all part of coming initiatives in 24, 5, 6, and 7. We will be bringing some of those in. So you'll get more data as we get close to those timelines. You'll know exactly which things will unfold in and when, but it will definitely take into consideration where we are in the market, as well as what's going on in the economy and the world outside of RHD, because we can't just make decisions about what's going on based on what's going on just inside of RHD. We have to consider the external market and everything that we do. So you will get communication around compensation 2023. Good news, we're hoping to be able to have those adjustments in employee paychecks in December of this year for 2023. In the past few years, I know we've been doing them and we've had to do them retroactively. That just creates a lot of administrative bottleneck. And if all parties are all aligned and everybody gets done what they need to get done, those adjustments will be in checks for employees next year. They will show up in the December paychecks. So we're hoping as we do this each year that we get better at doing something that we have not historically done. So you should see some improvements each year. Communication about what that will be will go out in advance of that. So you should see that right after, like somewhere around the Thanksgiving holidays when we have that planned. It'll go out after that holiday passes. After we get through Values Day, you'll get some communication, and then you should see adjustments in paychecks in December. And you'll know exactly when and who. We do have meetings with leadership, your service line directors, your DFOs, your shared services department leaders, all are in meetings and all get information. We did it last year, we're doing it again this year. We'll get information about what adjustments will be, and they will be able to share that information with their team. So when you have questions, you'll be able to go to them because they will be informed and equipped. So I believe that's my time. I know that a question came related to benefits and the deductible reset. We are planning to make try to make a relief of burden for those who were in that high deductible plan, who were tested or targeted to pay that $3,000 deductible and exceeded that and are now impacted by the change in the plan. We do have a plan, some level of relief plan for those who are most impacted in that way. Again, we're not completely eliminating that, but we do have a plan and we are just working on getting data and information from Independence Blue Cross. A little challenging since we're no longer with them, but our hope is to be able to finalize that and get something out to everyone, both in communication and then again, ultimately some level of relief for people to kind of help alleviate that burden just a little bit within the next 2 months. So I hope that that answered that question for those who are impacted. It's not everyone, but again, those in the high deductible plan who exceeded their deductible and then were hit with a reset of the deductible.
Well, thank you, thank you, Alicia. It's great to hear about the past, present, and future of the compensation initiative. So I'm going to hand it over to Stacy now, and she's going to give us an update about the results from our Together We're Better survey.
I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt really quickly. This is Sarah. We are getting a lot of questions about compensation. There is a Q&A and I'm sure both of you might have just said this, but I want to make it clear. There is a Q&A coming after Stacy's presentation. So I promise we are capturing them in the chat. We're capturing them in your voice, and we will be asking them soon. So you can continue to send, just know that we are not ignoring you. We're capturing each and every question.
Thank you,
Okay,
Sarah.
thank you.
Great. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Sarah. So good afternoon, RHD. My name is Stacy Bunch Harrison. I am the Director of Learning and Development here at RHD, and I am excited to share a high-level overview of the results from the annual Together We're Better RHD Employee Survey for RHD overall. I want to shout out, before you move, sorry, I just want to shout out the Together We're Better team, Sherry Cohen, Danny Torrance, Sig Ferguson, and Nafisa Daniels for their ongoing work on this. I am just presenting the results. All right, so what is the Together We're Better survey and why do we do it? In 2016, the annual employee survey became part of our strategic plan. And there's many reasons why we do it. Opportunities for staff to provide feedback and participate in positive change. We want to make sure we're capturing drivers of employee engagement and satisfaction on an ongoing basis. Helps us understand how to improve the employee experience, which ultimately impacts retention and quality service. And this is an RHD culture survey. So it really supports our culture, reinforces our values, and informs actions we're taking across RHD. And finally, we want to keep track of how we're doing over time. And as I share the results, you're going to kind of see a little picture of that. So the survey is broken into 5 sections that consist of statements that ask about our values at various levels of the organization and areas of importance to the employee experience using a 5-point Likert scale. At the end of each section, staff can share additional thoughts, comments, and recommendations, and we do a thematic analysis of those comments. I'm going to be sharing a high-level overview of each of these sections shortly, both of the demographics and highlights on the quantitative data and themes. Just a note about scores. We tend to perceive any score of less than 3.5 as an area of needing improvement, 3.5 to 4 as an area we need to focus on, and any score above a 4 as an area of strength. So, who completed the survey? First, I want to thank everyone who took time to complete the survey and share their voice. Your feedback is important and valued. This was the largest percentage of the workforce who completed the annual survey to date at 44%. And that's an increase from 10% last year, our biggest increase. We had a nice representation from all the service lines, as you can see, and generally an increase in participation across the board. So every service line pretty much had an increase this year. We have had a great representation from our largest role and the heart of our work. Shout out to our DSPs. 33% of our survey responses came from our direct line staff, and that's an increase of 5% from last year. So across the board, we also have good representation and diversity across roles. And then looking at tenure, you can see a nice spread of employees ranging from less than 6 months. So our new folks to 16 plus years at RHD, and our largest group having been here for 3 to 6 years. The first section that I'm going to review is the COVID-19 section. This slide shows the average scores of our 5 questions in this section that asked about RHD's response to COVID across various levels of leadership, ranging from executive leadership, program department, immediate supervisor, as well as overall satisfaction with RHD's response. Our scores in this section were fairly consistent and almost identical to our scores last year, hovering around a 4.0. Our COVID response at the program department level and supervisor level were strengths this past year. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the themes that we saw. So there were a total of 380 written comments in the COVID section this year. From a high level, we saw mixed feelings about our response to the COVID pandemic, including our stance towards vaccination, the timeliness of responses, how our policies were implemented, and available resources, to name a few. The good news is we had a higher ratio this year of positive to negative sentiments as compared to last year. Some of the strengths, as you'll see there, oh, before you move forward, thanks. Some of the strengths was our response considering the complexity of the pandemic as it evolved. The second strength was that we were focused on safety, and we also saw a lot of shout outs to programs and immediate supervisors for doing a good job in supporting employees through the pandemic. One more thing, there also were many opportunities for improvement. So one of the biggest opportunities we saw was around enforcement and compliance around wearing masks. The second around town halls, not always feeling like questions were answered practically or in a values-based way. And opportunities included a need for appreciation and understanding of how COVID is really affecting our program staff at the programs. All right. So before moving into each of the other sections, I just want to talk a little bit about how our results measure up against past years. So in 2020, we took a look back at the data from 2016 to 2019 to see if we saw any trends over time. So 2016 is in yellow and 2019 is in white. We found that progress had been made in every section of the survey over that time period. And then last year, we overlaid our results from 2020 in red, which captured the first year of COVID to see how that compared to the other years. And what we saw was dips across the board, some sections more affected than others. And now this year, we're overlaying in green this year's results to show how it compares. And what you'll see is that we're starting to see improvements in our average scores in 3 out of the 4 sections. And even the first section, RHD as a whole, is a minimal decrease from last year. And then that green supervisor, I want you to take a look at, is the highest average score it's been in the life of the survey. So we're trending in a better direction and showing some recovery from an incredibly challenging year. So each of the next 4 slides I'm going to review have the statements for that section listed on the right, with arrows pointing to whether our scores increased, decreased, or remain the same. And a star would note statements where our scores are 4 or above. So it's just a visual, but if you like to see the questions, because it's far removed, I wanted to make sure you had it there. For this section, RHD as a whole stayed relatively consistent and fell between a 3.5 and 4 in terms of scores. We continue to hover at a 4.0 for 2 statements about awareness of the wide range of services at RHD, so understanding the bigger picture, actively participating in RHD values culture. The statement regarding recruitment and retention saw an increase this year, though it is still the lowest in this section at 3.5. And for almost all statements, we did break out the DSP voice, being the largest voice at RHD and wanting to understand their perspective as a population, and they are higher in this section as compared to RHD overall scores. For the program department, this section continues to be a strength for us with 9 out of the 14 scores at or above 4.0 and no decreases this year. The statements that saw the biggest increase are around people feeling like their job makes good use of their skills and a climate of trust and sense of safety within their program department. DSPs for this section scored lower than RHD overall in statements related to understanding the program's budget. Deanna, great presentation there. I think they may need more than that, but good start. Being involved in decisions and employees treating each other with dignity and respect, and their team implementing the RHD values. All of these items within our circle of influence, because we can all contribute to those. The next section is our supervisor, and this section continues to be a strength and got even stronger this year. 8 out of the 10 statements are at a 4 or higher. Scores in all statements in this section either stayed the same or increased. And we know there's been a lot of work around supervision over the years, so seeing that is really encouraging. We saw the largest increases in statements related to the occurrence and frequency of supervision, and recognition, which was a big area of concern last year, also saw an increase this year. DSPs, however, scored lower in 6 out of the 10 statements as compared to RHD overall. And then our final section is overall satisfaction. And while the majority of statements in this section saw increases, 8 of the 12 items did in fact increase, it's the only section of the survey with no scores at or above 4. Some of the statements that went up the most were related to compensation, while still the lowest score, recognition, and support with work-life balance. Statement with the highest score in this section at 3.93 was people feeling proud about telling people that they work for RHD. DSPs in this section scored higher in 8 out of the 12 statements as compared to RHD overall. So that's a snapshot of the quantitative. I want to kind of quickly go through the themes on the next slide, and just share that more folks shared their voice this year. Comments were up 20%. So we were hearing more feedback in the write-in comments. We saw an increase in positive sentiments around our values and culture, 3 times as many as last year. RHD rocks and strengths around supervision. And although we saw in the quantitative that our scores improved in supervision, there were still a significant number of comments highlighting that supervision wasn't occurring and that supervisors are stretched too thin. So there's some differences in how it's being experienced across the organization. There are also many, many, many opportunities for improvement related to our values and culture, values-based leadership, movement in compensation, better connection between programs and corporate was a theme, recruitment and retention, and a newer theme this year was around communication. So as Alicia highlighted as she was connecting the dots around compensation, I think it's important to share that your feedback drives action, that things that you share, this slide provides a high-level view of action that has occurred over time and our continued effort. These are not things that are solved overnight. RHD has and continues to have focused actions in areas that you provide feedback on, like supervision, our values, compensation, as we heard from Alicia, support with recruitment and retention, benefits, well-being. So this is just thoughts around and actions that have been taken, so you can see your feedback is being heard. So what are some of our next steps? So we want to share more detailed results with leadership and RHD community as a whole, as well as efforts to work with our service lines to make meaning of the data. We don't want it to just be a report. We want to be talking about, how are we helping people understand the data and also making sure that your voice was heard and is valued. So that's one of the most important things that we want to come out of this. And then my last thing for this group is in line somewhat with what Marco talked about at the very beginning, and I have a call of action for you guys. So RHD thrives when we all actively participate in building our values-based culture, and we want to hear from you. So I want you to think about one action one action that you can take to contribute to building and supporting our values-based culture. So we want to hear those ideas. While RHD is taking steps in many areas, we all contribute to our culture. So you can email your actions to Employee Resource Network at rhd.org, and we're going to collect them and share them in an upcoming ERN newsletter to say all the different ways that folks are actively contributing to our improvement. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Stacy. Thanks for sharing an overview of our survey results. So now we're going to move into some program updates. So we'll start with VHH. So I'll hand it over to Linda.
Thanks, Danny. So I wanted to share just some highlights from each of the service lines in behavioral health and housing. And as I was preparing for this, I was thinking over the many years I've worked at RHD, some of the moments I've been most proud or most excited has been work that I'm not even directly involved in, you know, but the greater community, so many amazing things have happened. And so what I'm about to share, even if it's not your immediate team, I just invite you to think of it as your full team, your larger team, because there's so many great things going on around the corporation. And these are just a few that we can highlight. So for our national service line, the theme around evidence-based practice and training in New Jersey, Tri-County and Ocean County risk programs are implementing DBT or dialectical behavioral therapy. The staff is being trained and will be in effect across the programs. DBT, for those of you that have been trained, it is not a once and done, it is a commitment to a long, thorough process. And so just really want to celebrate and really give kudos for those that are committing to that. In our drug and alcohol service treatment line, the theme around expansion and new programming. Family House Norristown will be opening back up for women who have their children with them in treatment. And Women's Space Philadelphia expansion site will be opening late fallish. In Pennsylvania service line around innovative supports, the New Perspectives Crisis Res program has partnered with St. Luke's Hospital in the Carbon Monroe and Pike County areas for a walk-in center that is located in the hospital. Anybody who comes in that is experiencing emotional distress can receive evaluation, support, and referral services immediately. And in the Philadelphia service line, a celebration of and commitment to our peer supports across the corporation, United Peers hosted their first annual Summer Fest with over 100 people participating in 8 RHD programs, different programs attending. And I want to take one more minute, just as we look at these 4 examples, to talk about impact. So the national service line, about 15 people, 15 staff or so will be trained, and over 100 people that are receiving service will be impacted. In the drug and alcohol treatment, these 2 programs expansion and opening will be another 21 beds every day, another 21 individuals that will be receiving addiction treatment services, including some families. In Pennsylvania, we expect hundreds of people to make use of our services in our partnership with St. Luke's. And in Philadelphia, this is the first of many planned annual Summer Fest. And we expect that the influence and impact of this will extend far-reaching. So just wanted to thank you all again for listening to our updates, and then I'll turn it back over to Danny.
Thank you, Linda. And yeah, very exciting, and love hearing about the impact happening in BHH. So now we're going to hand it over to Bernie to give us an update from IDD.
Thank you, Danny. So I've broken it down by our regions. In the Midwest, Blank Canvas Studio had an artist win honorable mention at the Crossroads Art Council Beads Galore show. 7 of our Fine Line Studio artists were accepted into the Framation Gallery Art and Awareness Advocate for Animals exhibit. This exhibit is on display from July 23rd through October 4th. Live Yes Studio was featured in the Lincoln Journal Star, a local daily newspaper in Lincoln, Nebraska, highlighting the program and its artists. In Connecticut, one of our individuals, MK, has been working on a landscaping crew for about 5 years and was recently promoted to be the supervisor of a crew. In Boston, our IHS in-home support program was referred to at a funder meeting in a public setting as the Cadillac of programs by Charles River West area office. They love working with Shelley and her team. In Pennsylvania, in Western PA, DB, one of our folks in the Mainstay program, has used the Good Lives model, OT services, and a tailored sensory room to help him develop skills for community integration. He's joined a Jewish community center, prioritized his own physical health, and begun playing basketball. And I've got a great quote from one of the staff out there. We are proud of his story and thrilled to have such a dynamic guy to illustrate the possibilities for human growth when passionate people come together to lift one another up. It's a great quote. In Southeast PA, YN at the Beyond Boundaries program has a great team that has helped him to grow and thrive in a very autonomous way. Through his hard work and the support of his team and our OT services, he now has a job at McDonald's and is very active in the community. He loves sports and going to Phillies games and scrapbooking and collecting sports trivia books. After many years of effort, he has stated that he's now living the ideal CLA experience. That's it from IDD for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. Lots of amazing updates, creativity, so many good things happening in IDD. So we appreciate the update. Now I'm going to hand it over to Emily to give us an update from FPCN.
Hi, RHD. Super excited to be here. Want to start out with sending you a big thank you. Times remain super challenging and really hoping that you are taking care of yourself as much as possible because we need you. We cannot fulfill our mission without you. So wanted to give you some updates on some fun happenings at FPCN. We turned 30 this year. So FPCN is 30 and looking forward to at least 30 more years and counting. We opened 3 new school-based health centers this school year. So we are now in the Belmont Charter Network, Belmont Inquiry, Belmont Academy, and Belmont Charter. So that brings us up to 6 school-based health centers, which are going really well. And wow, wellness on wheels, it's coming for you, RHD. So our vehicle is almost ready. We will be on the road in November and, looking forward to coming to some Philly RHD programs to provide primary care, dental, behavioral health, family planning, any kind of testing, dental. We are available. And so looking forward to connecting with more Philly RHD programs where the consumers need these services. And one of our new sites is opening next month. So FPCN Now, we got a wow, now we have a now. So we are opening a convenient care in the ShopRite on Island Avenue. For those that remember, we used to have a convenient care in the ShopRite on Fox Street in Philly. Now we're going to be in Island Avenue. And I'll tell you, it's a walk-in convenient care. It is bigger than Fox Street. We'll have nurse practitioners there. We'll have integrated behavioral health, outreach and enrollment, benefits. So if your consumers are having an urgent issue where they don't need the ER, but need to be seen, come on in. It's walk-in. And also for any staff and for any staff that are coming, employment physicals, that's your place. So come on into the ShopRite on Island Avenue. And lastly, we've been talking about it for years. We'll continue to talk about it, the Women's Health and Birthing Center. It is coming, probably about 1.5 years away, but want to keep it on everybody's radar to be the only birthing center in Philadelphia. It's going to be in Southwest Philly near our Healthonics site. And those pictures on the right are renderings of the birth center. The top one is the outside facade, and then the one below it is a birthing suite. So super excited about it, and we'll keep you posted. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily. So many exciting updates happening at FPCN, and I love wow to now. That was great. So that concludes our agenda of presentation. So we're moving now into the second round of Q&A. So I know we've had quite a bit of questions come in. So we'll go ahead and gear up and get ready for that. Why don't we start with some questions in the chat? So David, let's start off with you.
Thank you, Danny, so much. We have a few questions in the chat, starting off with Tara, I believe, earlier. It says, we have a whole team working on the EHR system. Can you explain more why an external consultant is needed, and does the money for this come out of program budgets?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second part of the question first. The money to pay for it is coming out of the BTS budget, not programmatic budgets. And then the first question is, why do we need this? And we have a whole team of people working on the EHR. It's partially true. We have a whole team of people working on the EHR, but actually we have a whole entire company working on the EHR. So the reason that we do need this OPA process to come in is to really help us pinpoint the resources that are needed across every aspect of our organization to successfully implement the EHR for RHD. So what that means is they're gonna look at all of our program groups. They're gonna understand what's needed for each of our program groups. And they're going to help us to understand what we need to build out to support them, how to optimize the workflows, and how to build the system that best supports RHD as an organization. They're also going to tell us what people we need across our entire organization to really help with this lift. Because this really does involve just about every person at RHD, the electronic health record, the implementation of the electronic health record, it's really important for us to make sure that we are investing properly as an organization, that we're staffing properly, and that we're ready for this. And this engagement is going to give us all of those answers and help us engage in this process differently than we've ever had before. And for those of us who've worked in this for a very long time, we're really excited to have different resources come in and help us, specifically the consultant we're engaging in. Because this is what she does day in and day out. She's helped hundreds of nonprofit organizations just like us get to a different spot. So we're really excited to see this happen. David, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you for that, Tara. Will the OPA focus solely on central operations or also dig into more granular operation practices needed in the individual programs?
Yeah, so it's going to look at all of our programs and it's going to look at them in program groups. So as an example, all of our behavioral health residential programs will have a time slot. And during that time slot, we will identify people to come in and engage in the conversation with our consultant. Same thing for IDD residential, IDD day programs, behavioral health, drug and alcohol, outpatient, you name a program category, there's gonna be a meeting with this consultant to have the conversation. Those meetings will take place over 3 days. So 3/4 of the on-site engagement will happen with our programmatic and divisional staff to talk about our specific programs. And then the last day will be more of the operational aspects, our fiscal teams, our revenue cycle teams, IT, executive team, HR, compliance. So I hope that answers that.
Thank you for that, Tara. I believe, Alicia, these questions are for you, and you answered most of your questions in the chat already. If you want to just reiterate, it says, so if you haven't received an adjustment yet, how do you go about that? That's the first question. And what does the 90% of the 50th percentile mean, Alicia?
Yes. So every individual question about what adjustments you might individually either be eligible for, do, whatever the case may be, I am encouraging you to reach out to your program, department, or divisional leadership. DFOs have a list of every employee and where they fall, and so they can answer very specific questions about individual cases. So that hopefully answers the direction of where do I go to get more information. The second point is that we did a chat and chew, and it is up on Cornerstone. All the chat and chews are viewable at any time, on demand, by anyone. They don't have to be assigned. We did one on compensation a year ago, if I'm not over a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, around about August, if I'm not mistaken. And so that chat and chew will explain all of the terminology. There was an explanation, the really quick, and I'm only sharing that with you, resource, and I'm going to answer the question, but I want to make sure that if anybody has those kinds of questions, please take a moment to go in, look at the chat and choose, the HR chat and choose, find the one on compensation, so that way you have all the foundational knowledge, not just for today, but as we continue to move forward in compensation. We want everybody to be knowledgeable because we do recognize that approaching compensation in the way that we're approaching it is very different and new for RHD as a whole. So it's about also getting people, not just the change management in the approach, but making sure everybody's understanding and becoming informed all the way along at the same time. We're all learning together. 90% of the 50th means that we have set an initial goal, if you remember from the road trip, of the 50th percentile of the market. So there were questions about how are we stacking up and how do we assess and measure ourselves up against other organizations. Every year, there are compensation surveys that businesses, not just organizations like RHD, but all businesses complete that compensation gurus, I'll call them, use to compile data in an anonymous way and share out for those of us that do that kind of work in HR and are charged with that we then review to say, okay, so if we get a survey of 200 employers in this industry, in this marketplace, where are they in terms of compensation? 50th percentile being the middle of that point, that middle of market is kind of like the average, half above, half below. And then 75% is usually where they go of the market. So most organizations, not many are at 100%, most are somewhere in a range below that. And there are organizations that are leading that have very flush and are largely, I loved the education around restricted versus unrestricted. Doesn't just apply to donations, it applies to government funds, it applies to a lot of different categories, restricted versus unrestricted dollars. But the organizations and businesses that have more freedom and more opportunity to bring in dollars that they can use for specifically compensation or that they can use for anything, usually have a little more ability to lead in that circumstance. Doesn't mean that we can't get to a decent place, but I've said from the beginning, and I'll say, I don't know that RHD will ever be able to be the 90th percentile of the marketplace, but I do believe we can get better than the 50th, but 50th was the initial goal. When we started this, we were way below the 50th in most positions. There are some that were already above, but for the most part, our positions were below the 50th percentile, below average in the market. So our goal was to get there and then launch everyone from there. If I can keep going, David, there was the question about COLA and when that will be folded in. And I know that there's questions out there about merit-based or performance-based increases. I think the goal is to get us to a point where we are at least competitive, even just for your base wage. And then we can begin to fold in things like, how are you performing? And if you're performing average, then maybe you stay there. But if you are someone who, based on objective, concrete, quantifiable information and data, is someone who excels, who goes above and beyond in whatever your category of employment is or your position is, that we would be able to acknowledge that differently. But the first goal is to get us to a certain place in the market so that we are at least competitive just from our base wages. So I hope that they answered those questions. But you can always email me if it does.
Yeah. I think you did, Alicia. Thank you so much. I think one quick one just came in real quick. I just want you to see, is the COP initiative benchmark data publicly available? And I think someone else is putting a link to the chat and choose in the chat.
Yes, so the compensation benchmark was something we purchased from an outside vendor. We're not able to publish it. It is not RHD's data. It is data that we are using. So I think that people remember like the pay scales, and we were able to print that out. And so this isn't look in that way. Again, it's survey data that includes the whole system. We are able to take that. We have taken that information and shared what is the 50th percentile wage for every role that existed at that time. There have been some new roles since, but in that was shared out with anyone who was a part of a compensation conversation last year. All leadership got a list of their employees. You saw the title and the position that they were in. You saw what the 50th percentile of the market was. You saw what 80 percentile of the market was. And then you saw where your employees were, and that dictator determined who was getting an adjustment. So what your 50th percentile is available to you, your leadership has that. So if that's what you're looking for, it is out there. It's not published and posted. We're not able to do that because the information on the benchmarking is proprietary to Willis Towers Watson. I'm sure everybody understands when you have proprietary information, we aren't able to publish it. It doesn't belong to RHD.
And the last question, I had Sade email you offline, Alicia. She had some more specific concerns. Is that all right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Sade had some more specific concerns. Can she email you offline?
Yeah, absolutely. I shared with, there's someone else that I did shared also. I'll put my email in here. You can email me, and I will say this. Understand, we do have 4,000 employees across the corporation. If you email me and you don't hear back from me, email me again. It's okay. It's not, I won't bite if I didn't get to you, email me again.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Back to you, Danny. I think we have some more questions.
We do. Thank you so much, David. I'm going to hand it over to Sarah to see what questions have come into her.
Yes. So I have a few more questions regarding compensation, Alicia. So, and also forgive me if you've answered these. I've been in the backgrounds collecting questions, so I'm not 100% paying attention to what you're saying. So the first question is, it's great that we've gotten the lowest paid employees at RHD to a higher rate. The executive team also got significant adjustments a few years ago. Can you address the plans for those of us who are in the middle? Many of us have not gotten an increase ever. The only response I get is that HR did a market analysis for my role, but I have never seen the market analysis. What is the plan for this group?
So again, there were some employees who were already at the 50th or over the 50th, and we were not adjusting those employees at that time. I do believe that it's something that we will take back and we will have some conversation around. Our goal has to be get everyone to a level floor. And so that has, unfortunately, and I know this is not what people want to hear, but anyone knows me, they know that I get that it's not always what everybody wants to hear, but I don't know how to speak anything other than truth. That our initial goal was to get everyone to a fair market wage, and someone used the word equitable. We want to make sure that we have equitable compensation. We always get feedback from employees saying, I'm in a role and this person's in a role, we do the same thing, and we don't get paid anywhere near the same. And so we have a pay equity issue as a corporation that we are also working to address gradually as we make these adjustments. That does mean that we have to move groups of employees at particular times. We aren't able, unfortunately, as far behind as we have been, we've not been able to just kind of move everyone all at the same time. Trust and believe, if I am sure that every single person in a leadership position in this corporation would love to be able to make one adjustment and everyone would be right set, level set, and we would be able to have a clean slate going forward in terms of everyone being in equity in terms of their compensation and us being in the market position that we want to be in that helps us to be able to recruit as well as retain our employees. That is the ultimate goal, to be able to retain our employees and to recruit employees as we need them that are the quality the employees that we desire and we need, and we have so much ground to cover that we have to do that in stages and steps. So again, the question is, when will employees who are at or over the 50th receive adjustments? That is in years to come, and we will be able to share that information. Now, I can't tell you today when that will be, but know that that is definitely something that we have, we are paying attention to. I also want to make sure that I answer another question which came up, which is, when will we address regional differences? I put it in the chat, but I want to reiterate. What we're talking today is about our corporate-wide RHD compensation structure. Let me be clear, there have always been and continue to be adjustments that are made at the program level and the divisional level through a compensation adjustment process. The divisional leadership puts in and says, hey, this region, this market is highly competitive and we need to move them ahead of everyone else. Those decisions are typically made, as long as they don't go over a certain point, and if they do go over, they then come to us to sign off on, but they are being made and are being adjusted and are still happening. So the corporate compensation initiative has not stopped initiatives and adjustments as they've been determined necessary at a programmatic or divisional level. So I just want to make sure that everybody does understand that, because I know everyone doesn't know about that process. Sarah, did that answer?
Yes, thank you, Alicia.
Okay.
A few more questions. When will standardized job descriptions be finalized? How can proper pay scaling be done without proper titles and job descriptions? Great question.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. So there was a job description project that started 3 years ago. But we had the job descriptions. No real issues until we did benchmarking. Then we heard we didn't have job descriptions that were correct. We launched in July the reboot of the job description project, where we are asking every leader to actually sign off on the completed job descriptions. We were hoping to get those all back. We have not gotten all of them back as of yet. We have still a few that are outstanding, we're still waiting to get. And once we get them all in, we will then benchmark all of those jobs together at the same time. The benchmarking process is rather intensive. Any of my HR business partners who are on here know the level of work and involvement to do accurate benchmarking. You can't just Google a title and that's it's a little more involved than that. And so we need to make sure that we have the job descriptions complete so that when that work is done, it can be done accurately and we don't get the kind of back and forth of, well, now we want to make this change so that we can try to bump up the compensation for it. So yes, we are not doing new benchmarking until we get the completed job descriptions currently and signed off by leadership. My understanding is regional leadership, service line leadership, executive leadership, department leadership, and they should be reviewing with their teams in their process, whether it's program directors or whomever. So I am going to refer you to any of those levels of that I have mentioned if you have questions and if you have not had a conversation about job descriptions between July and now. I'm going to redirect you there.
Thank you, Alicia. So I just wanted to jump in for a quick second and say we have about 5 more minutes for Q&A. And we know that lots of folks have questions out there. Just wanted to remind you, if we don't get to all of your questions, we are capturing all of them and we'll make sure to get back in touch with you after the meeting. So we have time for a couple more questions. Sarah, is there anything else that's coming to you?
Yes, I actually have a question about the EHR. Can someone explain how using an EHR improves the quality of care for individuals we serve? My program has used Avatar since the beginning, and we feel like we are spending more time on the computer than we were handwriting progress notes. More computer time means less time to support individuals.
I could take part of that answer.
Sure.
For me, when you document a handwritten note, that should take about the same amount of time to put that note into the EHR. What that handwritten note cannot do is really look and track changes over time. It can't track themes. It can't easily connect to other providers, either within or outside of RHD. So even if the content of a handwritten or a typewritten note may be the same into the EHR just gives us many more tools to be able to provide and understand quality service for that individual.
And one more thing.
Nowadays, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Emily. Go ahead.
Sorry, Sandy.
No,
EHRs also come with a lot of clinical decision-making tools embedded within it that allow for whoever is in the EHR writing notes or seeing a patient to see what could we do for a patient, or what is an evidence-based guideline that I really should be talking about or following. So, because there's so much in our brains all the time that the EHR is a tool for us to use to be able to provide higher quality care because of what is embedded in it.
The other thing is now as we go for new business, most RFPs ask the question about whether or not we had an EHR, and so a lot of the new business is all about EHR, and if you don't have it, they go to the next person. So if we want to continue to grow, we're going to have to do what it is that's being requested of us from those funders.
Thanks. We might have time for one more question, so I want to open that up. Sarah, Are there other questions that came in to you?
Yes, I got one about PTO. Another one for Alicia. Alicia, you're popular today.
Of course.
Always. So it says, it's really sad and hard for families that counted on their excess vacation time for Christmas break, but the time now goes away the 24th. Is there a way that this can be back to how it was so that we and our families can enjoy that earned time through the end of the year to celebrate Christmas stress-free? This is causing a lot of stress for a lot of our team members.
Right. So I think that the challenge is, I want to make sure that we're all clear that this the PTO calendar year is largely driven by the year that you get your the date that you get your first pay, because it can't cross that tax year. So it will roll back as we get closer. At some point, it will roll back to cover the holidays. But you have to look at what is the beginning of the pay period for the first pay of the new calendar year. That is how it is determined. And that is primarily what the driver is. So definitely recognize the challenge. Most programs or most PTO plans do allow for carryover. So the excess carryover is an issue, but most PTO plans do allow for a level of carryover for both vacation and sick in terms of PTO. So I don't want to confuse carryover with excess carryover. It's the excess carryover that we're not able to continue to carry that liability as a corporation. But carryover, according to whatever your PTO plan is still allowed based on your PTO plan. PTO plans are submitted by your director and or for shared services. There's one for shared services, but your program director and or their designee completes your PTO plan each year. So that definitely is the person that you want to make sure you connect with to understand. And or if you are an employee who wants to know what your carryover allowed is, Lawson Employee Self-Service PTO. And that will give you all what your plan has been written to be.
Right. Thank you, Alicia, and thank you everybody for submitting your questions and really showing up during the Q&A. We appreciate it. Like I said, we know that we didn't get to all of them, so we captured all the questions and we'll make sure that we get back to you and respond to them after the meeting. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marco to share some closing remarks.
Thanks, Danny. And I just want to echo what Danny has shared and his thanks for the questions and being present in our conversation today. And thanks to the presenters and who shared all the great information and great opportunities and great successes of the folks that we support and of ourselves and the work that we're doing each day. There were a couple of recommendations and thoughts about potentially creating some smaller forums or other forums, and know that those suggestions and comments did not go unseen, and the team will continue to reflect on what's necessary and possible to continue the dialogue in the most effective way. So I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I do want to recognize and continue to share that we are a community of people working together to support people. I want to thank you all for what you do and all that you make our organization be each and every day. And I know at times our work is hard, and it's important to be able to pause and celebrate and also maybe have a little fun together. So in that spirit, let us get pumped up for Values Day. And we would love for all of you to watch the video that Mary is going to put on screen and share with us. Have a great day, everyone, and an even better tomorrow. Thank you.
Smashes her own
History has been made.
It's massive, and it is a new world record, surely.
Have a good day, everyone.